First of all, welcome to the channel and thank you for stopping by. When time permits, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. Behind me is my 2020 KTM 390 Adventure. And one of the changes I've made was installing the Fuel X Lite. I had initially purchased the Fuel X Lite because I was planning on replacing my entire exhaust with a Dominator system. And the Fuel X came in a little bit after the Dominator system. So the Dominator system went on replacing the cats, the mid-pipe, and the muffler. Now there are two concerns when you're putting a full system on these bikes. One is that you're going to lose back pressure. The theory is between the two cats and the giant box or resonator in the middle of the exhaust system, they provide back pressure that you need. And the second one is, since they're lean from the factory, that as soon as you take those cats out and you add more air, they're going to be more lean, and that's going to be a problem. To be fair, when I put my Dominator system on, it did not seem to be running any leaner than from factory. Probably is. I haven't changed the spark plug. It's probably a little whiter, but the bike seems performance-wise to be just fine without the Fuel X. But I'd ordered the Fuel X, I was waiting for it, and when it came in, onto the bike it went. Now, Fuel X states that the Fuel X Lite will do a couple of different things. Primarily, it's supposed to add bottom end torque and to smooth out the throttle. Now, when I put the Fuel X on, I already had a sprocket in the rear that was up 3 teeth. So my bike already had perceived more torque than it would from the factory. And with the Fuel X Lite, I didn't notice any difference whatsoever. So I don't think it's really adding torque. And it's worth mentioning that two things have happened since then. One, I've gone back with a new chain and sprocket set to factory, and I did notice an ever so slight difference, a drop in torque. So it doesn't look like the Fuel X is enough to compensate for 3 teeth. So if your reason for buying one of these is that you want low end torque, my recommendation is just drop a tooth in the front, and for $13 you'll get more torque than you would from the Fuel X. I don't think that's a reason to purchase it. But the other thing that it claims to do, which is smooth out the throttle, it absolutely positively changed the throttle on my bike. Now, I'm not implying there's anything wrong with the throttle. It's a little herky-jerky or a little hitchy under 4,000. That's just how this engine is. I've ridden the RC390 and the Husqvarna based on this 390, and they both have the exact same throttle. At the beginning of it, smooth is not a word you're going to use until you hit 3,500 or 4,000 RPMs. Honestly, you're rarely ever riding this bike below those RPMs, even on the off-road version. But it does exactly as promised. This will smooth. It'll give you a nice feeling from the moment you pull on the throttle all the way to where it would normally pick up at 3,500 or 4,000 on its own. That is absolutely a wonderful feature of the product, and it works exactly as they state. Another one of the things they claim is that your engine will run cooler, and this is just an assumption because they literally say on their website it'll run cooler, not how or why or by any amount. And in my experience checking the temp of the bike, yes, it's going to run less lean, so technically it's going to be cooler, but it's certainly not enough to tell on the dash. I've run this thing off-road, slow speed maneuvers, climbing hills. It never really overheats. I've had this bike well over the speed limit for a very long time on trips. This bike does not overheat. So does it do what they claim and lower the temperature? Probably. Is there an overheating problem on the bike that you need to lower the temperature? Probably not. That's probably just put there as a bullet point. So I can't say whether it does or doesn't do that in any significant manner. So why I put it on was because I was putting on the full exhaust. Now, I am not a mechanic. I do not understand the actual need for the catalytic converters. Other than emissions, I'm not sure how much back pressure they really build for a bike that only has 40-ish horsepower. I do know from looking at the resonator that that is a straight through pipe. There's nothing in there stopping the air. Therefore, I don't believe that actually builds any back pressure. But the cats absolutely could. There are two of them. They're relatively small, but they might be adding back pressure. That said, I didn't notice any loss of power when I took those out, and I didn't notice any real gain of power when I put the Fuel X in. And while that's not something that Fuel X claims, a lot of guys have this, and a lot of them post on the internet that they have superior power for their bike. I'm not experiencing that. My bike is no faster. My bike does not accelerate any quicker. My bike doesn't apparently have any more torque. Read into that what you will, but I do believe that if it is adding power, it is incredibly subtle. It's still a good product. It does some of what it says it's going to do noticeably. You will absolutely get an improvement in that throttle. And I think that's what most people are going to take away from it. It makes the bike feel better. And for $150, making your bike feel better every single time you accelerate from low speed, that's not a bad deal. Now, if you have a full system, people say you need to do a retune. Now, interestingly, Dominator states you don't need to do a retune for their system. There are other full systems that absolutely say you should apply a fuel tuner. And if you're gonna do a fuel tuner, I don't think you can go any cheaper than the Fuel X Lite at $150. That's not bad at all. And occasionally it's below that price. So, would I recommend this to somebody? If you are irked or bothered by the throttle, sure, spend the 150 bucks. I can't imagine you would install this and not come away saying, this made my bike better, and be happy with your purchase. But if you're pulling on the throttle and you've never said to yourself, kind of jerky, I wish this was smoother, then I wouldn't necessarily buy it. I don't think it's gonna add anything else. I don't think it's gonna cool your bike down significantly. I do not think it's gonna add significant power, and I do not think it's gonna add significant torque. So if you're keeping your exhaust stock, I would not buy a Fuel X Lite. Are you replacing your exhaust? If the answer is, I'm putting a slip on, or I wanna yank the resonator, I don't believe there's a significant amount of back pressure from either of those two parts that manipulating the O2 sensor is going to change. However, if you are putting on a full system, at least check with the manufacturer. When I was looking for one, two of them that I looked at said you will need a fuel tuner. Of course, they both sold fuel tuners. The third one was Dominator out of Poland. They don't sell a fuel tuner, and they don't say you need a fuel tuner. I mean, it should be allowing more air. It should make it slightly more lean. So for $150, it might give you good peace of mind, and the bonus is going to be your throttle's going to feel much better. So I guess at this point in time, I would say if you are doing a full system, I would also recommend getting the Fuel X. You'll absolutely get the bonus on the throttle, and you'll probably do better with a less lean system. All right, if you stuck around, thank you, and take care.